All right, welcome to NFL Outdated Cover 2 series. This episode is on the Denver Broncos with Jon K. NFL, and it's Jon Kronenberg.
Correct. That's me. It's great to be
Yeah.
on. Thank you for having me. Very excited to talk about the Broncos to some fans who maybe don't know the team as much.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. You've covered the Broncos through a Mile High Report in the past, through SI, right?
Yeah, Mile High Huddle, which was an SI channel, which was a great time being able to cover them there. Got to know a few Bronco players a little bit more personally, so it was a great time. But now I'm a free agent in a sense. I'm looking for that new podcast that can be fun and some new viewers.
Well, hopefully we'll find you one here. I think I'm looking forward to everything that we can talk about. There's so much to talk about the Broncos. Where are they going? And we can start right away. Just kind of go right into it. Where are they going with quarterback? I mean, this is such a QB kind of conundrum. Bridgewater, Drew Lock, Future. Have at it.
So I think basically the future is the Broncos learned this year. That's why they kept going with this year for Peyton and kept the staff as it was to learn if the quarterback they could find it a different way. They tried with Bridgewater. He beat out Drew Lock pretty handily.
Really?
Actually, it was a close matchup, but it shouldn't have been close for someone who was in the system with Shermer for a year already. For someone who's been in Denver, Bridgewater was coming in with a 6th-round pick traded, looked down upon. So Drew Lock had all the advantage to get the job. He was unable to get it, and I understand why. And I think the Broncos have looked at both players now through the future and see them as both not being in the future. So that's how the Broncos are looking at it. This was a 1-year kind of thing to prove it for both quarterbacks and coaching staff. And
Okay.
so that's what this year was for. And that's why Peyton was given a 6-year deal. Now they have 5 years to work with.
So Bridgewater presumably they're both gone after this year then?
At this point, I would assume both are gone. I am going to go with that. The price to keep Bridgewater, if they wanted to do that, they could have done that. He had a 2nd year with the deal that he had with the Panthers that they got rid of. Locke will still be here as a backup second backup person with Rippon kind of competing for whoever, maybe they bring someone through the draft or again possibly sadly through free agency. Through a lot of Broncos fans have known Joe Flacco and a few of these guys have come through a little bit too much. So I think the future is more or less towards the draft and a bad 22 draft class to say the least too.
Right. Oh yeah, I mean, there's one from North Carolina. It's pretty pedestrian, I'd say, quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you got a few guys in Willis from Liberty, Strong from Nevada, as well as Corral from
Ole
Ole
Miss,
Miss.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but again, those aren't top tier, top 5 can't miss players. I feel at least at this point, I haven't seen enough. I haven't done my due diligence and watched the all 22 film.
Well, it's so interesting. Spencer Rattler was kind of right in there, and now he's fallen off a cliff pretty much.
Way off a cliff. And a few of those guys, it's going to happen, and it's best for the teams that it happens now.
Absolutely. So what is it with Drew Lock that just wasn't a match? I mean, he was doing decent last year, wasn't he?
Drew Lock, he was not actually doing as well as maybe some have thought, actually. Drew Lock, the big issue with him was he was only reading half the field. He was not going through his progressions completely. So when you're only forced to half a field, you're really limited in how you're going to attack a defense. And on top of that, he was throwing the ball very deep, low percentage throws, passes that just did not hit the player's hands and that would go over for interceptions. So Drew Lock, he had some highs and some good points, but at the same time, when a coach can only use half the field and when you only have a few reads you can do, it hinders the offense way too much. It's passable in college, not in the NFL.
So talk about that a little bit, reading half the field. Like, was he laser focused in like Cortland Sutton, or what do you mean by only able to read half the field?
So essentially, he'd be told, on this play, you're going to read the right side or the left side of the field. Your progressions are all going to be there. You're not going to be progressing to the right side. You're going to be kind of laser focused on, or you're told you look over the right side. Your number one target is Fant. Throw it to Fant. If not, get it out of the, throw it out of the end zone. So it's a very simplistic offense that really just did not give much opportunity for creativity from the play caller. Although, again, we could talk about Schumer a little bit later and his lack of creativity and how that's hurt the team this year.
Well, yeah. So, go into that a little bit. I mean, coaching wise, Fangio, so brought Shermer in. So it's just kind of been too simplistic of an offense, then, or
It's been so for the Drew Lock period, it's been too simplistic, but I don't fully blame him for that. What came into this year, though, he has the full playbook open for Bridgewater, and it's been vanilla, vanilla, vanilla. He's running the ball, getting 2-3 yards, and then it's third and very long, not manageable. Then you're in 4th and 2, you're punting. There's way too much of this team going on the field, 3-and-out punts. The reason Bridgewater was brought in was for long, sustainable drives to tire out the defense, and that's just not happening when now you're tiring out your own defense. So that's been a big issue for the offense. But for Vic Fangio, I also feel like he's having a lot of issues. He's not using his timeouts correctly. He has missed some huge timeouts that have come later to bite the Broncos in the backside. And his defense, it was fantastic last year. A lot of people were starting to do the copycat thing. This year, it hasn't been as successful. And again, not getting natural pass rush. It's something that really has to happen in a Vic Fangio defense, and it's just not happening. Even though the Broncos are down Chubb, who was rushed out a little bit too fast. Von Miller, who's hurt as well with an ankle, possibly coming back this week. They just are not getting natural pass rush. So if a team can't get natural pass rush, you're going to have to bring in blitzers. This team does not have the defensive backfield that everyone thought they did. If you look at Fuller at this point, he's been, he went from playing significant snaps to two weeks ago and 1 last week. So I don't expect to see much of Fuller anymore. So there's a lot going on in Denver with that.
what about like Surtain? I mean, he's been decent, hasn't he?
Surtain has been fantastic. I think, if you're looking at this season, so far Surtain has been the biggest bright spot. Besides the other defensive backs not being maybe as supportive as they need to be with Surtain to be, make that jump. At this point, he's looking like a solid starter in his rookie season. So at this point, I would say that's a hit. I know people are not happy with them picking Surtain, let's say, over someone like Justin Fields or another quarterback. But again, I think the Broncos front office was more looking to see if Locke had anything left and what was left in his coaching staff before they went into a new quarterback.
Yeah, you kind of have to do that, And Surtain, I mean, he was a heck of a talent there, and defense is, it's been a strong suit for the Broncos for a while. I mean, and with Von Miller, who are some of the others that have been some of their key players or going to be? I threw out Mike Purcell there.
That's one of my favorite. That's Mike
yeah.
Purcell. He's the backbone of this defense, and he has a injured thumb actually this week. He may be kept out of this game, unfortunately, versus Washington.
Yeah.
And so he had surgery on it. They wrapped it up, and supposedly looking pretty good. Has a possibility of playing this week. But if he doesn't play, the Broncos are losing their backbone of their run defense, and that's how they, the Broncos. That's where they start at, is making sure you can't have run defense going on. So that's going to be a big loss. If not, Deshaun Williams will take his place. Williams has been fantastic when he's gotten able to play. However, the Broncos don't have their starting 2 off-ball linebackers, so they don't have their backbone of their defense, the entire, triangle. It's Purcell, it was Jewell and Johnson. Well, no longer. Now you're sticking with a 5th-year pick from last year in Justin Strnad, who's seen his first action this year. And other guys, we had the Broncos had Kaiser, who's now on IR. They are going with players they just traded for, essentially. They traded for Kenny Young today from the Rams. And hey, I don't know if maybe you expect him to play. It is that dire at off-ball linebacker for the Broncos.
Yeah, I saw that trade and I thought it was weird because, you just don't know what the Broncos are doing. They started out so well, and now they haven't, been doing well. It was interesting to see a trade from a team that may or may not be a contending team.
Yeah. And for me, I think the reason the deal was done was just, it's still, I still have to actually see it come to fruition. He's a good young player. Obviously, the Rams wanted to see their third round pick. His name is slipping my mind, but they wanted to get him on the field. So it made sense to make the move. When both make sense, pull the trigger.
Yeah. And so, what about some of the others? On the Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons.
Yeah. So Kareem Jackson, I've been a little bit harder on this year, but that comes with some of his age. He's been great in run defense, has not been great in pass coverage, but Stearns from Texas has been very, very good at supplementing his play. Simmons this year has been somewhat of a disappointment. Sadly, after getting that great deal, I still think it's a good deal. Want to make sure that's 100% clear. But he's supposed to kind of play in Fangio's defense a little bit all over the field. Well, the Broncos defensive backs are not covering the deep routes well enough right now, causing Simmons to go further back, not being so involved in the plays closer to the line of scrimmage. And he's also just being a little bit more flat when he's kind of trying to assist a defensive back. He's not meeting them in the route. He's kind of coming in flat and missing them as they go by.
So, what's been the difference between how the Broncos started and now? I mean, was it just competition, or more offense? I mean, defense has been all right, but they've kind of been a letdown at times. Or
I hate to use the injury excuse, but their injuries are definitely a factor. As I was telling you, with Chubb going out very,
yeah,
really quickly, not getting any real significant play time with him, losing your middle linebackers, losing all those players. But besides that, it was a competition difference. Yes, it was. There was something going on there. You can't deny that. At the same time, the coaching staff, they were able to have those long, sustainable drives. Well, now with the way these more recent teams have been playing them, it's been more aggressive. Teddy Bridgewater's not getting the time he needs, and it's just led to some bad play across the board.
well, yes, with the bad play, and you've got some talented players on that offensive side.
Mhm.
And going to the wide receivers, with Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Hamler getting hurt. I mean, is this kind of the most talented wide receiver when they're all healthy? One of the most talented wide receiver groups the Broncos have had, or
Yeah, this ranks as one of the top receiver groups, I think, in the league. Really, I really think if Sutton, unfortunately, he got hurt last year. If his ACL wasn't bothering him so much this year, he was feeling a little bit more clean. He would definitely be producing higher. Unfortunately for fantasy fans, he's not going to be that top 10 producer that he could have been with this kind of offense. But the Broncos have to decide here is, are they going to pay Sutton? Because both Sutton and Patrick are on 1-year deals essentially.
oh, they
Both
are.
both are essentially very good, competent number one wide receivers. Some I hear some in Broncos country saying Sutton could earn up to 17 million a year. 17 to 18, that's a lot of money. That's quarterback money almost. Patrick, if you could get him at a cheaper price, very similar in ability, this is a very talented Broncos wide receivers group. And they also have Judy possibly coming back this
That's
week.
right, Jerry Judy. Yes, I had this one. Yeah.
And so, and again, even for the back of their depth, teams were trading for some of their players. Benson went to the Lions for a 5th-round pick right before the season started, and at the same time, they got Mr. Hall of Fame quarterback Kendall Hinton as their wide receiver. You got to remember that
I do remember. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
got his wristband in the Hall of Fame, and he's been playing actually pretty fantastic for a DB that was a quarterback that now is a wide receiver.
Yeah, well, off the street too, right?
Yes, of course. So he really earned it the hard way.
So that is interesting. You think about like signing Sutton and Patrick, and to quarterback money when you don't necessarily have the quarterback position solved.
Right. But that's where you go ahead and draft a quarterback, get them on that rookie contract, which is when you can spend your money. So you got to get that quarterback and you want him on that rookie deal where you can have that 5th-year option, have 5-year window with this this great amount of talent, including Fant, even though he's not my personal favorite. He is talented. And if you get a young quarterback who can really hit those guys, oh, that's dangerous.
Or
Okay.
if you get an old quarterback, what about Aaron Rodgers rumors?
Aaron Rodgers rumors. Boy, talk about my summer.
Yeah.
That really was a lot of what I spoke about, and I honestly don't see it happening
Okay.
at all. 0% chance. I know his girlfriend was a big reason why people thought he's going to come to Colorado, to Denver, in regards to she lived in Boulder. That was kind of one of the big things. She lived in
Oh,
Boulder. He wants to come to Colorado, have this lifestyle, kind of the Colorado lifestyle.
right.
At the end of the day, though, does Rodgers really want to come into a franchise with someone you don't know who the owner is? We don't know if it's going to be sold, if the Bolins are going to come together finally and get that going, who's going to be the controlling owner. Do you want to come into a team that's going to potentially lose their offensive coordinator, their head coach, change defensive schemes as well? That's a lot of change, and you only have a few years left. Might as well make it be with a team that is stacked and loaded. The Broncos are stacked and loaded, but there's too much outside the locker room. I feel that would make him want to come in to Colorado.
Yeah, that those are all good points, and you talked about kind of the ownership, and as an outsider, I've wondered the last few years about trusting Elway in his role, but does he not really have a divine role, or talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Elway's role has essentially come to an end. He was the acting president. They essentially decided to give him a nice little boost in pay, actually, and he kind of took over some nice little role upstairs. But he has no control over this team actually right now. This team is all George Payton's. The last year that was his last year. He has no control. This was a better way of getting separated from Elway without having the tension of the franchise quarterback, the player that people think of when they think of the Denver Broncos, John Elway, and have it be a nice separation instead of a bitter kind of conflict that would happen. This is just a nice way of having it. So as far as I'm concerned, and I think the Broncos organization and the fans that are in the know, they would Elway has nothing to do with this team at this point.
And is that a good thing then?
That is, in my opinion, that is a good thing. I think Elway, he loved his quarterbacks. He went for these strong, tall quarterbacks like Brock Osweiler. He brought together a fantastic team. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to, let's say, draft the talent and do that other side of wheeling and dealing as a general manager. Versus someone like Patton who can go and say, hey, I'm looking at the bottom of these rosters. I know who can be a great player. Versus Elway, who kind of goes with some gut feelings and things like that.
It's so interesting, some of these great players. I mean, with Jordan and Elway, and they're great at their when they're playing, but it's tough to translate that when someone just can't do what they did.
Yeah, but to Elway, to Elway's point, he built that roster with Aqib Talib, with Manning, all of that just by sheer kind of talking to people, whining and dining. That had very little to do with actual football talk. So to each person, you can do it different ways. That's what I learned about GMs. You can do it different ways. Just got to make sure that the people surrounding you also listen to and are able to take away what they have and make it a cohesive kind of unit where everyone's learning from each other.
So it was at least a good, fun window as a Broncos fan, though, to have that, right?
Oh, it was a fantastic ride. I think, even in, 2016, that's kind of when the downfall started to happen. It's been pretty nice for Broncos fans to say, oh, we've had 5 years, 6 years of bad luck, and that being the worst thing for a Broncos fan. I mean, gosh, I feel for the Cleveland Browns who are, thinking back to, all the way back to championships when there weren't, the Vince Lombardi championships. They were just NFL championships. So I Broncos have been very blessed.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So, like, growing up, one of my good friends was a Broncos fan, and that was when they were losing Super Bowls and things like that, and they just thought they'll get there, and lo and behold, they changed the uniforms and they got there.
Yes, I remember that was when I was a little bit younger, but when they changed the uniforms, man, it just felt right. And the people are right now are calling for a change in uniform to get the luck to switch. So hey, it's what a lot of NFL teams do. Maybe it's time.
And maybe it is. And speaking of time wise, we talked a little bit about Vic Fangio and his future. And do you see him lasting past this year? And if not, who might be the answer?
I don't see Vic Fangio or most of this staff making it beyond this year. Maybe Mike Munchak can be kept around because he's based in Colorado with his family. That's very important to him. Otherwise he's going to retire. Otherwise, I think Ed Donatel, even though he's been great at what he's done with the defense, I expect him to just be a cost of time to trade to do some shift. So I think they're all gone. I don't really have a name in mind quite now. I would love Byron Leftwich just to see what he's done in Tampa Bay and how he's progressed. But I'm not sure if the Broncos, again, it depends on the Broncos brass. Are they going to look for an offensive mind? I think they go that way in an offensive mind after proving, after year and year, it's very hard to win with a pure defense. You can win with some great defense and a great offense. So I think they go offensive route and are looking for, a more older coach to handle the defense.
Well, yeah, I mean, so and you definitely in this cycle you'll have like an Eric Bieniemy, and we'll see, if that will be a hot name, and obviously Brian Daboll.
Daboll. I have to say, Bieniemy is probably out for Colorado. I'm not sure if you know some of his history with Colorado, CU Athletics. Let's just, it's enough leaving it there. I guess I'd say
Okay, yeah,
if someone
I
wants
forgot
to
about
do
that.
the research, they can do some research. But
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like people in Colorado, at least I feel that, do not want him in that regard.
Yeah, that's a good point there. Yeah, that's a good point. So it'll be interesting to see, next year who the coach is, because there are, we talked about the wide receivers, but even, going to the running backs, I'm not sure how long Melvin Gordon's going to be on the team, but Javonte Williams has really kind of emerged as well, right?
Yeah, Javonte Williams, man, he is someone who is hard to tackle. I've never seen a running back who gets hit, gets contact, and then somehow it keeps him up and he's able to continue running forward as he gets hit and hit and hit. So I think the Broncos traded up, for the 35th pick for a reason. They really believe in Javonte Williams. Both, him and Michael Carter were great at UNC. So both running backs were great, but there was a reason why Williams is offering so much. He's great in pass protection, which is something that really, needs to be noted. That's something really can hinder a running back's development. So great in pass protection and great on in screens as well. When it comes to Melvin Gordon, this year is his last year, probably. His contract's up. I assume the Broncos aren't going to pay him $8 million again. So they'll be looking for someone. They have Mike Boone, who they signed from Minnesota, as their backup. But they really like Javonte Williams, and I think he has the potential to be a bell cow for the Broncos for years to come. Just need someone to be, that supportive role.
Yeah. And so is he kind of good out of the backfield as well, like catching passes as well, or?
He's had a few drops here and there. I don't mind that usually when it comes from rookie running backs, just because I know there's so much going on in their head. They're trying to feel out what's going on. If they're going to get a big hit, they're not as acclimated to receiving the ball as some receivers. So I've been okay with some of his drop passes, but he's not as good out of the ball, the backfield as Gordon, but he's getting there, and that's all that matters, is that he can be someone you have in 3 downs. You're not going to have to take him out on those 3rd down passing downs for pass blocking reasons, or for, you're fearful of him actually catching the ball. So very, very good out of the backfield. Very, very, very happy with what he's been able to produce, as someone I was a little worried about being picked so high as a running back.
Well, speaking of another pass catcher, maybe not one of your favorites, but an Iowa guy, Broncos tight end Noah Fant, and talk about his talent kind of on the field and maybe the other tight ends that they have.
Yeah, Noah Fant, when he came out of Iowa, he had a lot of these traits that everyone, I'm sure you can speak to this. He had so many athletic gifts that it was mouth watering. On top
Mhm.
of that, they had TJ Hawkinson. So, I mean, you were
Mhm.
really, there was a good class of tight ends there. And the
Well,
Broncos,
I was
go
gonna
ahead.
say, yeah, at Iowa, it's interesting because Fant had the notoriety ahead of time, and Hawkinson kind of emerged as the better tight end at Iowa. So it was interesting to kind of see, when they both got drafted. But yeah, go ahead.
So it'll be interesting if you agree with me on Fant here.
Yeah,
But when it comes to Fant, I feel like he's too concerned with people around him. First of all, contact, he gets afraid of contact. He also he can't get open and get separation for me. For me, he even though he has that 4.5 speed, there is no separation. So of course, top end speed, great. He doesn't live up to his 3 cone speed. So that's a big issue for me. On top of that, he's regressed as a pass blocker for the Broncos from last year. Significant pass block or run blocks that were missed have led to you know not turnovers but punts. So essentially turning the ball over.
right.
So Noah Fant, he's had a rough year. He's still able to corral some great balls and use his body to get some pass interference calls here and there. It's just not where I would expect a 27th overall pick that had all this talent. It just felt like he kind of stayed. He had some growth that first year, and nothing has happened since.
Is he been more dependent on like quarterback as well?
Yes, he's been very dependent on quarterback and play design. So if a play is designed specifically for him to be the number one option, and he feels confident in that play, he can take that play, make it a 35-yard, big time play. However, if he feels like the play isn't going to him, he kind of that energy goes down. And I'm not saying that's the worst thing. We all make there's a lot of players that make business decisions, cornerbacks especially. I just don't feel that Fant, if he doesn't feel like it's a big opportunity for him, he's not going to live in that moment personally.
Yeah, and who else do they have tight end in the tight end room?
So Albert Okwuegbunam, I hope I pronounced that right. I think I did a pretty good job. Albert Okwuegbunam had injury this year with his hamstring, some soft tissue issues, which has been an issue with Denver for a couple years. Not on the staff or anything, just been an issue. And he's coming back this week, potentially versus Washington. One of my favorite players that the Broncos brought in this year, Eric Saubert, I think has done a great job in the run game. Also has proven to be valuable in the receiving game when called upon. So they have some good solid wide receivers. Beck is considered their fullback, tight end, slash kind of person, hybrid H-back.
Mhm.
But the Broncos just have to get more out of Fant, just to be frank. And all of these guys, they're all very talented receiving tight ends. These are receivers. These are players you want playing on the Y, not versus the X.
Well, yeah, I mean, talk about. I mean, that Denver has really had a solid tight end history as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
yeah.
no, it's the Broncos. Going back to Shannon Sharp all the way to I'm slipping my name right now from went to the Jaguars.
Is that Julius?
Julius Thomas.
Yep,
The
yep.
Broncos have had some great talent, and I think the problem is getting that talent to come to fruition. I think the Broncos just need to get more out of these guys. When it comes to Albert Okwuegbunam, I've heard some poor things in regards to his football IQ. Very poor things, and that's been why, partially to his lack of play, he's running specific, let's run a 9 route. It's very simplistic what he's doing because it may not all be there, IQ wise, but he has that speed, he has that body frame. So that's been kind of a difficulty. I do wonder if the Broncos are going to bring in another tight end and what this means for Okwuegbunam and Fant going forward. You still have to take Fant and his 5th-year option, of course.
It's so interesting how sometimes I feel like a quarterback can make a tight end better. Over the years, you have Philip Rivers and Gates.
Mm.
Even last year with Bobby Tanyan with Aaron Rodgers, and you've seen him struggle this year. And I think I talked with the Packers a guy about that, about how Tanyan was just running one route. He wasn't really, in part of it, his success. I mean, you have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, and it would just be interesting to see, like, if you paired Noah Fant with just a more solid quarterback, if that would kind of push him as well.
I think it definitely would, to be honest. I think he'd be more confident. And again, it's not like he's having a bad year. He has 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's his, he's not performing the greatest. He still has 35 receptions. That's pretty darn respectable,
Mm-hmm.
averaging about 10 yards per reception. You still get quite a good amount out of Fant. But as you were saying, the quarterbacks have been really letting down these receivers and tight ends for the Broncos right now. And it just is, there's not enough balls to go around for everyone to, show, hey, I am of this caliber. People can say, oh, if you look at the film, he is of that caliber. However, there's not enough balls to go around. You're down so much, and then all of a sudden you're doing Hail Mary kind of deep plays, which are not, good, for those kind of players that need those receptions, those multiple targets.
Well, especially if he's coming up on needing a new deal as well. I mean, he's kind of wanting to push that.
Yes, definitely.
So speaking of kind of pushing out the rest of the season here, what I mean, they started 3-0. They got 4 straight losses, and that was just an ugly loss to Cleveland. I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Tell me, how are you feeling after that loss, and how are you feeling kind of going forward? That maybe for the rest of the year, what do you think the record's going to be?
Well, from speaking to fans in Denver, they all have felt NFC East team, but in together with the coaching staff. I think obviously, from players I've spoken to in the locker room, they're still together as a team. That's still there. I'm just not sure if the rest is there for them. But as far as the ceiling, hey, if things go right, the NFC East, it can be a little bit weaker, and the Broncos can take advantage of that. And again, always being home with a Los Angeles Chargers game, you're always home, so that's a nice thing. Maybe they can get
Right.
it. Maybe they can get to 8-9. But I'm being realistic here. And this is not a playoff football team. Unfortunately, I went into the season thinking this was a playoff football team. I think they have the components to be a playoff football team. I just, I don't think that in the end the coaching staff did this roster justice, or at the same time, the management didn't do justice with getting everyone prepared. So I felt like, yeah, go ahead.
I would say, and the AFC is really deep this year as well. I mean, the Bengals now are on. I mean, I don't know how the Bears beat the Bengals, but there you go. That's. I mean, yeah, there really are some tough games they have left. I mean, maybe Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's tough. I mean, when you look at one of the top teams being the Raiders, the Broncos got shellacked by the Raiders in there, and then they still have to face the Chiefs and the Chargers twice, I believe.
yeah.
So I mean that those are hard games against top quarterbacks, and what is this team like mentally at that point?
So you talked about the locker room. I mean, these are professional athletes, but they are real people. Going ups with the ups and downs. I mean, how do they like stay focused, when they're going through this kind of swing of winning and then losing all.
I think the Broncos as a team, they're very close. They have some great leaders in Simmons, and I think that's one of the big thing is that their leadership and trust in each other is quite significant. Just from hearing conversations that Simmons has said, other players have said, I think that unit they're still together as a team. All I can say is it's kind of my gut feeling and some words from a few players that I've spoken to.
Absolutely. And kind of, we talked a little bit about this year. What do you see kind of going into next year as far as some draft needs?
Yeah, for next year, right tackle should be an interesting position to look at. For me, Bobby Massey really has been a great turnaround. I know he's been injured for a few years, but he is doing fantastic this year for the Broncos. Should be, definitely consider to be brought back. I know with his age being older, but you got to consider a right tackle no matter what. As well. Cornerback, you always need more cornerbacks. I think that's just one of those things. The same with edge. You always need more edge players. We don't know. This is Vaughn's last year. Do you re-sign Vaughn? Does Vaughn want to come back? So there's some questions there, as well as, Malik Reed, being their third outside linebacker edge. Is he going to be able to do that? And finally, it comes back to the off-ball linebackers with the two guys, Josie Jewell and AJ Johnson, both being hurt, both also in a contract year. So who do you bring for off-ball linebackers? That's a huge question. And at the same time, Broncos don't really necessarily put them at high stock. So it might be a later kind of need.
Yeah, and you talked about Josie Jewell is another Iowa guy there. Do you see him coming back because of the injury, or will he not be back now because of that?
He was playing so well at the beginning of the year. It was amazing how fans realized how much of a difference he made when he left the game. And all of a sudden, everyone was saying, wow, that we need the outlaw back. So I think it's definitely a possibility. It comes down to, I think every player wants security. So if the Broncos can offer security, of course, let's get something done. With Alexander Johnson, though, the other linebacker, he's older. I'm not sure if you remember his story. He was a Tennessee graduate, and he was falsely accused. Later, was told he was cleared in a domestic case, essentially. So when the Broncos signed him, he was an undrafted free agent and he was 27. So, I mean, at this point, he's on his second deal. This is his only deal that he can get money. He's going to try to take the most amount of money. I don't think the Broncos want to pay him. So I think it is Josie Jewell.
Yeah. And I definitely, think that Josie, fits well in that defense, and that's going to be huge. And quarterback, I mean, depending on, I don't even know what, free agents are going to be available as far as quarterbacks. I mean, there may be quite a few. I mean, I don't know how many will be an upgrade from Bridgewater. I mean, what do you see?
I see it being, there's going to be some quarterbacks out there, but it's similar to Bridgewater. It really is. So for me, you gotta hope that there's someone that this because Peyton is huge on scouting. I don't know if you knew that. He got the way he found his way through the NFL is through scouting. Very rare to get a scout all the way up to general manager. So it's hard to not know without how he's been scouting this. If he views one of these guys as a first round talent, he didn't view the guys last year as a first round, guys, So for me, this is a very hard decision. The Broncos have to, though, make a move at quarterback at this point. Put the first round, on the trading block, make a move and make this team back to what it was, and be proud what it used to be for Pat Bowlen.
Well, yeah, when you think of like quarterback too, I mean, there's some huge, shoes to fill. Elway and Manning, for a couple of years, and he won the Super Bowl kind of, just his last gasp, I guess. But how does someone replace that? I mean, they've tried over and over again to is it just something about the position, or why haven't they been able to fill that quarterback position?
One thing of note I just wanted to mention is Manning is getting his Ring of Fame enshrinement this halftime for the Broncos against Washington. So that'll be fun for people that are at the game, and hopefully there'll be some stuff after you can see of it. But otherwise, to me, when Elway left, you had Greasy. He had some great years, actually. He had the highest passing percentage, kind of what they do for the NFL QBA now. But he was actually pretty fantastic, held the ship over. You got Plummer, you got you to the AFC Championship game where the Steelers actually won later. But it was always still this good feeling of, hey, we're continuing the same thing. We have Kubiak here. He did eventually leave to the Texans, but he's doing the naked boot passes that the Broncos fans loved, and it still had familiarity. So even though Elway left, there was still something about the team that felt this is our Broncos still. You still had the names where you were from the Super Bowl era, and that's kind of left now. It is just McManus and I think that's pretty much it. That's who's left.
That's crazy. You got a kicker that's kind of the one of the holdovers.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So I mean, this has been fantastic. I definitely talk football all night. Any other kind of nuggets about the Broncos that you see kind of going forward that would be helpful?
Not anything I can think of right now. I'm trying to look through my notes a little bit, see if there's anything. No, not really. I think it's been a fun conversation. I hope you all enjoyed it. Reach out to me on Twitter, Jon K, right there. You got me set. So
got you set. Yeah,
it's been a fantastic time talking to you about the Broncos in so many different aspects. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Oh, one last question actually, as I'm thinking. So who is the bigger rival in the division of the Broncos?
For me, I think it always goes with who's winning. It's unfortunate. It always goes with who's winning. But if you were to take it on an average basis, we hate the Raiders. It doesn't matter. Los Angeles, Oakland, Las Vegas, we hate the Raiders. Doesn't matter. The Broncos fans are going to be able to travel now very easily to Las Vegas, take over those stadiums and make it a home field advantage, just like the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, great point.
So yeah, definitely. Been a great time though. Appreciate that question as well.
Absolutely. Well, once again, this has been an NFL Outdated Cover 2 series on the Denver Broncos, and thanks again, Jon K. And I look forward to connecting with you on Twitter and also where else we can find you on YouTube, right?
Yeah. Well, I just kind of dabble in YouTube, so we're getting YouTube going, so you'll see.
Perfect. Well, very good. Thanks again, and we'll have a good night.
Have a great night. Go Broncos, and we'll see you soon.